Fank hit us up from Jupiter, Florida. And Fank G to be exact, said, "You got any thoughts on Florida State recruiting lately?" I do, as a matter of fact. Thank you for giving me a reason to open this door. How well do you remember June? Let me put a finer point on it. How well do you remember June of 2023? Because if my memory serves me correct, a solid 70% of the American college football population was in my DMs trash-talking Mike Norvell and Florida State recruiting. Fast forward. How well do you remember July of 2023 and early August 2023? These are important dates, friends. I ask you that because at the end of June 2023, Florida State was nowhere to be found. You go on 247sports.com, you look at the top 10 in recruiting rankings, no Seminole logo. Top 20, no Seminole logo. There were 26 at the end of June. And that's not insignificant because that's after your camp season. So you got all the June camps, and there's supposed to be this tidal wave of commitments after that, right? And so everyone was waiting, refresh. Cricket emoji. And people talked. Folks in Tallahassee yawned, and folks in Coral Gables and Gainesville and outside of the state of Florida talked. Then July happened. 12 commits, 8 of them blue chip. That alone would be good enough for a top 40 class. It did not stop. We were on the road this past weekend. They landed KJ. They did. They landed KJ Bolden, 5-star athlete. And now, guess what? You don't have to scroll too far to find the old Florida State Seminoles and Mike Norvell. They have got the number 4 class in the country as of Sunday evening, August 6th, the year of our Lord, 2023. I got to credit our guys over at Knowles 24/7 because I had doubts, but I don't follow Florida State recruiting minute to minute like they do. So I'd be curious, hey, why is more not happening? I knew they had good visitor lists in June. I knew they had guys on campus. They had guys camping. Why don't they have commitments coming? Well, it's not everything's the same. Not everything's an apples to apples situation. So I go on Knowles 24/7, and the staff over there was pretty adamant. One of many reasons you should be subscribed to this network. The staff over there was adamant. It's coming. It's not going to happen immediately due to several factors. It's not going to happen immediately. They were always confident in it. So I didn't know it was going to be quite this kind of tidal wave, but I thought there was a wave of commitments coming for Florida State eventually. Well, you go over there now, everybody's celebratory. It wasn't that way in June, I can promise you. So the number 4 class in the country now, I know they're ranked like top 10 by everyone. Some folks have them top 5. So you may, if you don't follow recruiting closely, you may just look at Florida State being ranked top 10, being a fringe playoff contender, being one of the co-favorites to win the ACC this year, and you may think, oh, Florida State's roster's back. They've arrived. No, they hadn't. Florida State's roster does not compare to elite teams in college football. They've got a lot of experience. They have mined the transfer portal extremely well. They got a good staff, and they got a veteran quarterback down there that is in the Heisman picture. They got really, really big additions at wide receiver specifically out of the portal, and they could make some noise this year. But their roster could get a lot better even than it is right now. It's not a bad roster. It's not an elite roster. So when I see recruiting classes like this being put together, make no mistake. Just pretend for recruiting purposes like Florida State's outside the top 30 to start the season on the field. Because that's how the staff should be thinking down there. And that's how fans who follow recruiting should be thinking down there. You still got a little ways to go before you could ever get into a playoff game. Imagine Florida State making the playoff this year and drawing Georgia in the first round, drawing Ohio State in the first round, drawing Bama in the first round. You know how big a mismatch that would be athletically? Doesn't mean you can't win. Upsets happen. But you would not be their equal. You're not there yet. And so it takes stacking classes like this. But it's such a welcome change. If anyone believes in the theory I have floated on this show about how you get real competitive balance injected back into this thing, I've stated this theory a million times. This will just be 1,000,001. Forget about expanding the playoff. Forget about NIL. Forget about all this other stuff. It's just getting teams in Florida and Texas and California to recruit their own state better. That's it. That's all it takes. If Miami and Florida State, if Texas and Texas A&M, if USC, if those schools Just keep a majority of their in-state talent that they want home. That's all it takes. Because what happens is every single class, the Alabamas of the world sign 3 or 4 less from those regions than they would have. Stars end up impacting playoff and title games. It is a roster, but it's star players. You get 3 or 4 fewer of those star players per cycle, per those 3 or 4 schools that have been raiding those states. It shows up. It makes those schools better in the Sunshine State, Lone Star State, but it chips away just a little bit, at those schools in Columbus and Tuscaloosa and Clemson, Athens. They've gone into those states and gotten a lot of that talent. And so here's Florida State doing their thing, playing their part. So hats off to Mike Norvell and company. Now, I do want to say this. It continues to be the most entertaining thing that I see in college football fandom. In this new world of NIL, it continues to fascinate me how every time some team lands a top kid, there is still this mechanism. You can't turn it off. It's like watching someone trying to quit smoking cigarettes. They can't quite turn it off. They put down the cigs, but my boys over here still vaping. And a lot of you are vaping on that NIL, they're cheating allegation. Are we really going to do this for another year or two? Eventually, we got to calibrate. Eventually, we got to get used to this. But in the meantime, how often am I going to have to hear 3 or 4 scorned fan bases hit that vape and then put it to the side and say, well, they paid him. Yeah, they paid him. It's legal. What are we talking about? They're not going out of there out of the goodness of their heart, guys, nor were they coming to your place out of the goodness of their heart. So, yes, it's happening. Yes, it's legal. The end. We even do it at Pate State. So certainly I expect everyone else to do that. Just how do you think you were going to land them? Do you think your kids are coming there for the logo on the side of the helmet, but they only go elsewhere for money? Is that how you think that works? We get it, bro. You vape, but you don't have to be stupid and vape.